I call it. This is live number 2. Please tune into the last live pertaining to Nikita Davidson out of Birmingham, Alabama. She was found deceased in her vehicle. Suspect by the name of Cedric Robertson has been apprehended and is in custody. Maxwell Anderson in custody in the murder of Sade Robinson out of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the Kansas women still missing, traveled to Oklahoma for custody exchange. Mother, Miss Butler, and Jillian, they're still missing, but 4 people have been arrested, and it is a grandmother by the name of Miss Adams who has been arrested in that case with 3 other suspects. Please check out that last live stream. Live number 2, Crime Vault. Welcome to Crime Vault. This is where I discuss older cases that have been resolved or unresolved. Menendez brothers is the subject matter, and we're also going to talk about an ex-Menudo member who has brought forward allegations of sexual improprieties against Jose, the deceased father of the Menendez brothers, and we're also going to dissect also allegations against the then manager of the group and tie it all in together with this case. Will these 2 brothers finally be free due to this allegation? So what you have to ask yourself, did it happen? The allegation against the boys? And also this ex-Menudo member. I remember watching Menudo as a young girl growing up in Chicago on the weekends. As most of you know, there'll be all these infomercials and commercials that will come on, and advertisements for TV shows and cartoons on Saturday. And I remember watching the TV show with the brothers, and this is just a very devastating information. Don't know if the allegations are true, but we're going to dissect all of that. Let's get down to business. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign the Angie, 129 Cash App, stickers and checks always welcome during the live stream. What was the motive for the murders of Jose and Kitty Menendez? Did the brothers kill out of greed? Or was it greed and allegations of sexual misconduct between the father and his boy children or one of the children? Thank you for joining me. There are also allegations against Miss Kitty as well by one of the brothers, Lau. He has recanted memories of her being inappropriate with him and asking her questions about her body and being disrobed and half dressed. Are those allegations true as well against the mother? Thank you for joining me. Wikipedia is the source. Joseph Lau Menendez, born January 10, 1968, and Eric Galen Menendez, born November 27, 1970, convicted in 1996 of the murders of their parents, Jose and Mary Louise Kitty Menendez. During their trial, the brothers stated that they committed the murders out of fear that their father would kill them after they threatened to expose him for years of sexual, emotional, and physical abuse. While the prosecution argued that they did it to inherit their father's multi-million-dollar estate, they were first tried separately with one jury for each brother. However, both juries deadlocked, resulting in a mistrial. For the second trial, they were tried together by a single jury that found them guilty. Both brothers were sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. I will post a poll during this conversation to ask you, do you feel as if the juries were right in their decision, 1 and 2? Should they have been tried together? I will also put that as a poll. That is the said information. Jose Enrique Menendez was born May 6, 1944 in Havana, Cuba. At the age of 16, shortly after the end of the Cuban Revolution, he moved to the United States. Jose attended Southern Illinois University, where he met Mary Louise Kitty Anderson, 1941-1989. That is the birth date of Kitty. They were married in 1963 and moved to New York City, where Jose earned an accounting degree from Queens College. The couple's first son, Joseph Lau, who goes by his middle name, was born on January 10, 1968 in New York. Kitty quit her teaching job after Lyle was born, and the family moved to New Jersey, where Eric Galen was born on November 27, 1970, in Gloucester Township. The family lived in Hopewell Township, and both brothers attended Princeton Day School. In the summer of 1976, Lyle and Eric's cousin, Diane Vander Molen, came to stay with them. She stated Lyle confessed to her that he was being sexually abused by his father. Vander Molen told Kitty what Lyle had said, but Kitty sided with her husband, and said Lyle was lying. Did the woman confront her boy children about the allegation? Did Kitty confront the children? Did all this transpire, what I'm currently reading to you now? That the boy child told the cousin he was abused. The cousin then went and said something to Kitty. Did Kitty say something to Jose? Did they say something to the children, either together or separately? What is the truth? So once again, Kitty sided with her husband and said Lyle was lying. Vander Molen recalls that afterward, Kitty put Lyle upstairs, and that was the last Vander Molen heard of the claim. In 1986, Jose's career as a corporate executive, he had joined the company then known as International Video Entertainment, took the family to Beverly Hills, California. The following year, Eric attended Beverly Hills High School, where he earned average grades but displayed a remarkable talent for tennis, ranking 44th in the U.S. as a junior. About 2 weeks before the murders, Eric and his friend Michael Joyce entered the 1989 Boys Junior National Tennis Championship. Eric reached the second round of qualifying in the boys' 18 singles, while Joyce reached the quarterfinals. So we see in this conversation here that there was talent by Eric in tennis. Lyle attended Princeton University, but was placed on academic probation for poor grades and was eventually suspended for plagiarism. So we see here there's a pattern in the boys' academics, okay? Eric had average grades, but perfected the craft of tennis. And then Lyle, who's the oldest son, went off to school on the East Coast, was put on academic probation at Princeton, and eventually suspended for plagiarism. So one would wonder, with all this money sending the kids to great schools, what was going on with their grades? Is there some truth to the allegations that the children were suffering mentally from allegations of abuse from the parents, sexual abuse from Mr. Jose, and this is why they were lacking in their school books? Because you have to ask all of these questions. Average grades in Princeton, why would you have average grades in Princeton? Because you had to have a certain GPA to get into Princeton. Stay woke now. You have to maintain an average to, one, be accepted. Number two, to stay in school. All righty. The crimes. On the evening of August 20th, 1989, Jose and Kitty were standing in the den of their Beverly Hills mansion when Lyle and Eric entered the den carrying shotguns. Jose was shot 6 times, including a fatal shot in the back of the head with a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun. Kitty was shot 10 times in total. Before the fatal shot to her cheek, she was on the ground, slowly crawling and crying. Once again, Jose was shot 6 times. Kitty shot 10. Why was Kitty shot more times than the father? You might ask that question. While she was on the ground, crawling and crying, Lyle ran to his car to reload before firing the fatal shot to her face. So I'm assuming they had ran out of ammunition and he had to go back to reload. Immediately after the killings, both brothers remained in the house, expecting the police to respond due to the noise of the gunshots. When the police arrived, the brothers told them that the killings had occurred while they were at a movie theater watching Batman and attending the Taste of LA festival at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. The police did not see gunshot residue tests from the brothers, which would have indicated whether they had recently discharged a firearm. So why was there no testing done on the young men? In the months after the killings, the brothers began to spend extravagantly on luxury items, businesses, and travel. Lau bought Chuck's Spring Street Cafe, a buffalo wing restaurant in Princeton, New Jersey, as well as a Rolex watch and a Porsche Carrera. Eric hired a full-time tennis coach and competed in a series of tournaments in Israel. The brothers eventually left the Beverly Hills mansion unoccupied, choosing to live in an adjoining condominiums in nearby Marina del Rey. They also dined expensively and took overseas trips to the Caribbean and London. Collectively, they spent approximately $700,000 before their arrest. Family members later disputed a connection between their spending and the murder of their parents, claiming that there were no changes in their spending habits after the killings. At one point, they attended a New York Knicks basketball game, which became immortalized when they appeared courtside in the background of a Mark Jackson trading card. Wow. During the early stages of the investigation, police tried to narrow their search to suspects who had motives to kill Jose and Kitty, and also investigated potential mob leads. As the investigation continued, they began to suspect the brothers were the most likely perpetrators due to the obvious financial motive and their exorbitant spending after the killings. So, as far as the mob leads, why would they be searching the mob? Did Jose have any ties, or Kitty, to the mob? And which mob? New York, New Jersey, overseas, LA? Very curious. All right. In an attempt to get a confession from Eric, police arranged for his friend Craig Sigonarelli to wear a wire during a lunch with Eric at a local beachfront restaurant. Now, why did they reach out to this friend? Or had this friend been talking to police about anything that he noticed strange? Is he also the person who told that he knew of the murder and it was a confession to him? Very curious. So this is Craig, okay? He wore a wire during a lunch with Eric at a local beachfront restaurant. Sigonelli asked Eric whether he had killed his parents. Eric denied it. Eric eventually confessed to his psychologist, Jerome Ozio, who then told his mistress. Now, Jerome, why would you do that? You know that's wrong and it's unethical. Judeline Smith. Ozio later broke up with Smith, and in a fit of rage, she told the police about the brothers' involvement. Now we have to ask, had she not broken up with him, would she have told the truth of what the psychologist confided in her, which was against the law and unethical for him to tell such deeds? All right. Now, I wonder what is the truth about that now? Or was it then? If your client told you they killed someone, were you advised that you must come forward to tell the truth? Okay? Now, with a lawyer, is it different? I'd have to do a little research on that, everyone. All right. Now, we have this fit of rage between this woman, Miss Smith, and Ozio. So she goes to the police to tell what was said to her by the psychologist. Lau was arrested on March 8, 1990, and Eric turned himself in 3 days later after returning to Los Angeles from Israel. Both were held without bail and jailed separately. In August of 1990, Judge Ames Allred ruled that tapes of the conversations between Eric and Ozio were admissible evidence, since Ozio stated that Lau threatened him and violated doctor-patient privilege. Is that true? Did this Lau threaten the doctor? How did that come about that he threatened the doctor? What would make him threaten his doctor? Did he threaten because he told him the truth that he had murdered his parents, he and the brother? How did that come to be? Very interesting. Albrecht's ruling was appealed, after which the proceedings were delayed for 2 years. The Supreme Court of California ruled in August of 1992 that most of the tapes were admissible, with the exception of the tape on which Eric discusses the murders. After that decision, a Los Angeles County grand jury issued indictments in December 1992, charging the brothers with the murders of their parents. The Menendez case became a national sensation when Court TV broadcast the trial in 1993. Represented by their defense lawyer, Leslie Abramson, the brothers stated that they killed their parents out of fear of their lives after a lifetime of abuse at the hands of their parents, especially sexual abuse at the hands of their father, who was described as a cruel perfectionist and pedophile. Is that allegation true? That Jose molested both of his boy children? And did he molest other children, such as a member or members of the Menudo boy group or any of the said underage children? Meanwhile, their mother was described as an enabling alcoholic and drug addict who encouraged her husband's behavior and was also violent toward the brothers. Are these allegations true that the mother was a drug addict, alcoholic, mean, neglectful to her children, knew of the abuse, and did nothing? Do you believe the allegations that the boy child told the cousin and the cousin confronted Kitty and Kitty sided with Jose? What is the truth? Will there be any other allegations against Jose Menendez? All right. So now we have allegations by the mother, of the mother children. The allegations against the couple were supported by the testimony of two family members. Very interesting. The brother's cousin, Andy Cano, said that as a child, Eric told him about the sexual abuse. So now we have two relatives stating that Jose touched. Andy said Eric told him about the sexual abuse, which they both described as penis massages. Don't you find that interesting? Both use the same terminology, okay? Diane Vander Molen, another cousin of the brothers, stated that she once told Kitty about Jose's molestation of Lyle, although Kitty told her that it was false. As physical evidence, the defense presented a photograph of Lyle and Eric's genitalia allegedly taken by their father when they were children. So now you have to say, why would a father have a picture of his children's penises? Why would you take a picture of your child's penis? For what reason? The only reason I can see you taking a picture is if you believe allegations that someone has inappropriately done something to your child. It looks abnormal. It looks out of sorts, let's say, and you need evidentiary material for yourself, of course. So we have Andy Cano saying that Eric told him of the massages. Then we have Lyle saying the same thing to a girl cousin. So we have two different cousins, each brother saying something different to another cousin. So we got Lyle talking to the girl cousin. We've got Eric Younger talking to another boy cousin. So we have two different versions to two different relatives about allegations of abuse. And once again, the defense presented a photograph of the boy's genitalia taken by the father. To me, that's very damning. Now, that's something I'd never heard. The prosecution argued that the killings were done for financial gain. Were they done for financial gain? This theory was disputed by the defense team, which claimed that the brothers did not think they were getting an inheritance. Lyle's prosecutor, Pam Bosanich, argued that men could not be raped because they lacked the necessary equipment to be raped. Say what? Ma'am, what planet are you from? I do not mean to be derogatory during this live stream, but this woman is a fool. You have a mouth and you have an anal if you're a man. Are you serious? Dear God, help me. This woman is a fool. Okay. Pam Bozanich, who's the prosecutor, Laos prosecutor, said the boys didn't have the men didn't have the necessary equipment to be sexually assaulted. This is the most baffling thing I've ever heard in my life. This woman must be a buffoon, and she has a law degree. Eric testified that a couple of weeks before the night of the killings, he told his brother about the sexual abuse he was experiencing, which led to several confrontations with the family. So did the boys finally confront their parents before the murders of the sexual abuse alleged towards Mr. Jose? Did this happen? Okay. I'm just befuddled right now. The brothers also testified that their father threatened to kill them if they did not keep the abuse a secret. They claimed the last confrontation happened inside their home's den on August 20th, 1989, a few minutes before Kitty and Jose were killed. The brothers stated that their father closed the den's door, which was unusual. Paranoid and afraid that they would be killed by their own parents, Lyle and Eric went outside to load their shotguns. Eric stated, "As I went into the room, I just started firing." Is this true that there was a confrontation, or is it not? Because what people are going to say, why would you have shotguns in your vehicle? I would find that strange and a bit bizarre. The trial ended with two deadlocked juries. As a result, Los Angeles County District Attorney Gil Garcetti immediately announced that the brothers would be retried. The second trial was somewhat less publicized, in part because Judge Stanley Weisberg did not allow cameras in the courtroom. During the second trial, Weisberg relying upon a legal decision by the Supreme Court. In an unrelated case, limited testimony about the sexual abuse claims and did not allow the jury to vote on manslaughter charges instead of murder. So this is possibly why they're not alive. But naturally, you're killing two people, you possibly still have the chances of getting a higher sentence up to life, with or without parole, because two people were unalive. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I think it's interesting that the judge decided not to have to only have limited testimony about the sexual abuse claims. Why is that? And it also says during the second trial, this judge relied on a legal decision by the Supreme Court in an unrelated case limiting the testimony of sexual abuse and did not allow manslaughter charges. Is it because of the force used, the weapons used, and the fact that it was 2-on-2? That's why he did not give the option of manslaughter to the jury. Very interesting. Both brothers were eventually convicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. In the penalty phase of the trial, they were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The jury noted the abuse defense was not a factor in its deliberations, but it decided not to impose the death penalty because both brothers had no prior criminal record or history of violence. Very interesting. So the jury didn't even ponder on the abuse in its deliberations. Why not? However, unlike the juries in the previous trials, the jury in the penalty phase rejected the defense's theory that the brothers killed their parents out of fear and believed that they committed the killings in order to inherit their father's wealth. So, trial 1, trial 2, in the beginning, boys are tried separately, deadlocked on both trials. But the state tries them together. Now we get a guilty verdict. Don't you find that interesting? And they believe it was because of the wealth of the family is why the boys killed their parents. During the penalty phase, Abramson apparently told defense witness William Vickery to edit his own notes, but the district attorney's office decided not to launch a criminal investigation of Abramson. This is interesting. Read that again. Okay. district attorney decided not to launch a criminal investigation. Well, why did you want Aberson to be investigated? The state, I'm curious. Both brothers also filed motions for a mistrial, claiming that they suffered irreversible damage in the penalty phase as a result of the possible misconduct and ineffective representation by Aberson. Oh, so is it because the boys complained about their attorney? Well, what is it that they did not like about her demeanor, her delivery in the trial? What is it that she did that they felt was inappropriate or not up to standard? I'm curious. What a fine mess. On July 2nd, 1996, Weisberg sentenced the brothers to life in prison without the possibility of parole to be served as consecutive sentences for the killings and the charges of conspiracy to commit murder. So we have a final verdict, July of 1996, but 1989 is when they murdered the parents. So that's a long time. 7 years. As in their pretrial detention, the California Department of Corrections separated the brothers and sent them to different prisons. Since they were considered to be maximum security inmates, they were segregated from other prisoners. They remained in separate prisons until February 2018, when Lyle was moved from Mule Creek State Prison to the Richard J. Donovan Corrections Facility, when they were housed in separate units. Eric also spent some time at Pleasant Valley Prison in Coalinga, California. On April 4, 2018, Lyle was moved into the same housing unit as Eric, reuniting them for the first time since they began serving their sentences nearly 22 years earlier. Now, why did they finally put them back in this location in 2018? I'm curious. The brothers burst into tears and hugged each other at their first meeting in the housing unit. The unit where they are housed is reserved for inmates who agreed to participate in education and rehabilitation programs without creating disruptions. So was that the only reason why the state put them back together? 2018, I'm curious. Appeals. February 27, 1998, the California Court of Appeal upheld the brothers' murder convictions, and on May 28, 1998, the Supreme Court of California declined to review the case, thus allowing the decision of the appellate court to stand. Both brothers filed habeas corpus petitions with the Supreme Court of California, which were denied in 1999. Having exhausted their appeal remedies in state court, they filed separate habeas corpus petitions in the United States District Court. On March 4, 2003, a magistrate judge recommended the denial of petitions, and the district court adopted the recommendation. The brothers then decided to appeal to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. September 7, 2005, a three-judge panel denied both their habeas corpus petitions, although Judge Alex Gosinski noted that the trial judge changed many of his rulings during the two trials. May 2023. The brothers filed documents seeking a new hearing based on newly discovered evidence purporting to show that their father had also molested boy band member Roy Rosello. Specifically on Tuesday, April 18, 2023, on a segment of the Today Show about an upcoming docuseries, Rosello stated that he had been drugged and sexually assaulted by Jose Menendez when he was visiting the Menendez, New Jersey home at the age of 14. Is this allegation true? Marriages and interviews in prison. July 2nd, 1996, Lyle married Anna Erickson at a ceremony attended by Aberson and his aunt Marta Menendez, officiated by Judge Nancy Brown. They divorced on April 1st, 2001, after Erickson discovered that Lyle was allegedly cheating on her with another woman. Wow, how can he cheat? He's incarcerated. Go figure. In November 2003, Lyle married Rebecca Sneed at a ceremony in the visiting area of Mule Creek State Prison. They had known each other for around 10 years before that engagement. What I find weird is this information about Aberson attending one of the marriages. Let me repeat that. In 96, when Lyle married Anna, Miss Aberson was the lawyer, remember, that represented him. She was there. But when we go back up here to this nonsense of them appealing and her being ineffective as counsel, hold on. Let me go back up here. Let's see. This would have been during their trial. It says Averson on July 2nd. Let's see. Ineffective representation by Averson. They felt like they suffered damages, irreversible damages by her representation. So on July 2nd, 96, Weisberg sentenced the brothers to life in prison without the possibility of parole to be served consecutive sentences for the killings. So that's 96, July 12th. Okay? But when we go down here, she attended a wedding July 2nd. So don't you find this interesting? Same year, same month. July 2nd, Lau marries this Anna person, 1996, okay? But when I go back up here, the boys claim ineffective counsel by the same female, Miss Averson. July 2nd. So July 2nd, 1996, this is very strange. They were sentenced to consecutive sentences for conspiracy to commit murder. So I'm kind of confused here. So wait a minute. July 2nd, they were sentenced. This is bizarre. 1996. It's like I'm not reading what I think I'm reading because this is weird to me. July 2nd, 1996. Then you go down here, July 2nd, 1996. It's the same damn day. What the hell am I reading? Please excuse me. Because I'm confused. Wait a minute. Let me go back because this is bizarre to me. Because I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. This is strange to me. So they got 2 counts of first degree in conspiracy to murder. They were sentenced to prison, life without parole. Okay. The jury noted that the abuse defense was not a factor in its deliberations. I told you about that. So when it's time for the penalty phase, it says, during the penalty phase, Averson apparently told defense witness William Vickery to edit his own notes, but the district attorney's office decided not to launch a criminal investigation of Averson. Both brothers also filed motions for a mistrial, claiming that they suffered irreversible damage in the penalty phase as a result of the possible misconduct and ineffective representation by Averson. On July 2nd, 1996, Weisberg sentenced the brothers life without possibility of parole, served consecutively for the killings, okay, and the charges of conspiracy. So that's July 2nd, 1996. As I said, when you go down now to the marriages, okay, they were sentenced July 2nd, 1996. On July 2nd, 1996, Lau married Anna. So that's the same day that he got the verdict. This is strange to me. And then he divorced April 1st, 2001. So 5 years later, almost 5 years later, he divorces her. Okay. Miss Anna discovered that Lau was cheating on her with another woman. November 2003, fast forward 2 years, Lau married Rebecca Sneed, another woman, at a ceremony in a visiting area of Mule Creek State Prison. They had known each other around 10 years before the engagement. Well, if he'd known her for 10 years, then that means he knew her before he married Anna. And is this the same woman that Anna suspected him of cheating on her with? Very odd. June 12, 1999, Eric married Tammy Ruth Zuckerman at Folsom State Prison in a prison waiting room. Now, this is the younger boy, younger son. Tammy later stated, "Our wedding cake was a Twinkie. We improvised. It was a wonderful ceremony until I had to leave. That was a very lonely night." In October 2005 interview with ABC News, she described her relationship with Eric as something that I've dreamed about for a long time, and it's just something very special that I never thought I would ever have. So how long has she been dating Eric, and why did she and this other woman and the other woman marry these brothers? Because people consider women who marry men in prison as lonely creatures who know they're never going to have a full relationship with them, and that they know that, and that's the reason why they date them, marry them, because you don't have the uphills, downhills of dealing with what comes with a relationship when you're free and you're walking around. You're entitled to your opinion. It's very interesting information. All right, everybody. It's very odd. In 2005, Zuckerman self-published a book. They said we never make it. My life with Eric Menendez. But she said on CNN's Larry King Live that Eric also did a lot of editing on the book. In an interview with People magazine, she stated, "Not having sex in my life is difficult, but it's not a problem for me. I have to be emotionally attached, and I'm emotionally attached to Eric. My family does not understand. And when it started to get serious, some of them just threw up their hands." Zuckerman also stated that she and her daughter drive 150 miles every weekend to visit Eric, and that her daughter refers to him as her Earth Dad. Discussing his life sentence, Eric stated, "Tammy is what gets me through. I can't think about the sentence. When I do it with a great sadness and a primal fear. I break into a cold sweat. It's so frightening. I just haven't come to terms with it." In 2010, A&E released Mrs. Menendez, a documentary about Zuckerman. In late 2017, A&E aired a 5-part documentary titled The Menendez Murders, Eric Tells All, in which Eric describes via telephone the murders and the aftermath. The series also shows never-before-seen photos and new interviews with prosecutors, law enforcement, close family, and friends, medical experts. These are the documentaries that have been made about the young men and their life. 2000, Menendez Brothers, Blood Brothers, episode from the documentary series by Court TV. 2015, Barbara Walters presents American Scandals, featured the Menendez brothers in the episode, The Bad Sons. 2016, the Menendez brothers were featured in a true crime documentary on Snapped. 2017, the Menendez brothers were featured in a documentary Truth and Lies, The Menendez Brothers, American Sons, American Murderers on ABC. 2017, HLN launched a new series, How It Really Happened, with Hill Harper. Episode featuring the Menendez brothers' story. Menendez Brothers Murder in Beverly Hills ends with a telephone interview live from jail with Chris Cuomo. 2020. BuzzFeed Unsolved features the Menendez brothers in a 1-episode special, How They Were Caught, the Menendez Brothers. 2021. The Menendez brothers were the subject of ABC's 2020 special, Inside the Menendez Movement. The special features the popularity of the brothers on the video sharing social media application, TikTok, and their growing number of supporters from young adults outside and inside of the United States. August 22. Discovery Plus released Menendez Brothers Misjudged, a 2-hour documentary focusing on the Menendez brothers' case and trial. May 2023, Peacock released a documentary series titled Menendez plus Menudo Boys Betrayed, which features Puerto Rican singer and former Menudo member Roy Rosello, alleging that he was sexually assaulted as a teenager by Jose Menendez. May 1st, 2023, Netflix announced that they were given exclusive access to the Menendez brothers and will release a forthcoming documentary feature. So we have Peacock and Netflix from last year releasing information about the brothers. Films. 1994, A Killing in Beverly Hills, aired on CBS. 1994, the television film Honor Thy Father and Mother. Sorry about that. The true story of the Menendez brothers features Lyle and Eric Menendez, portrayed by Billy Warlock and David Barone. 1994, the Menendez brothers were loosely depicted in the crime film Natural Born Killers. 2017, the Menendez brothers were featured in the Lifetime television film Menendez, Blood Brothers. Nico Tortello and Eric Lau was portrayed by Nico Tortello and Eric by Miko Olivier. Television series, 1990, Law & Order, Season 1, episode The Serpent's Tooth, loosely based on the brothers' case. 94, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air makes various comedic passing references to the Menendez case. One such example is Season 4, Episode 14, 1920 in the episode. 1999, The Sopranos, Season 1, Episode Boca. Junior Soprano makes a reference to the brothers' case, citing how their psychiatrist had appeared as a witness in the trial. Very wicked. 2008, Gavin Velour. Season 3 episode of the TV series 30 Rock features Tracy Jordan making multiple references to the Menendez brothers as he fears his own children would similarly attempt to kill him for his wealth. An act he termed as Menendezing. That's not funny. 2010, Menendez brothers were referenced by Bobby Singer. Season 6, episode 12 of the CW series Supernatural. And it just goes on and on, listing different shows that reference them. It also talks about parody and dark comedy, which is also just very disturbing. Feel free to check out this content on Wikipedia. So I brought you a broad overview pertaining to the brothers, where they were born, where the parents met, the marriage, the boys' marriages, the marriages between the parents, allegations now by Menudo member, ex-member, and we're now going to dissect that said information about the allegations. Should Lyle and Eric Menendez be free? Variety.com is the source. Number 2. Okay. Let's show you a picture of the young man making the allegation. When he was younger, of course. Sorry about that. This is a young man, Mr. Rosello, when he was a young Menudo member of the band. Many of you who are my age, 50 plus, will remember these young men singing on TV and other venues. This is when he was a young man. Thank you all. Let's see what he has to say, or what the allegations are. Thank you so much for joining me. I think I'm going to play it by audio. Whoops, hold on. Well, if I can get a hold of here. All right, everybody, Variety.com is the source.
By Sophia Scorziello. 3 decades ago, the infamous trial of Lyle and Eric Menendez riled the nation as people watched the brothers plead their case against the murder of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. In 1996, the Menendez brothers were sentenced to life in prison. Throughout their trial, the defense argued Lyle and Eric murdered their parents out of fear after years of sexual molestation by their music executive father, Jose. Now, decades later, another allegation has been brought forth, this time by Roy Rosello, a former member of the Puerto Rican boy band sensation Menudo, who says that he was sexually assaulted, a teenager, by Jose Menendez, the New York Times reported. The Today Show aired these allegations on Tuesday during an exclusive first look at the upcoming 3-part Peacock docuseries, Menendez plus Menudo, Boys Betrayed. In a clip from the Today segment, Rosello alleges Menendez family's New Jersey home. Rosello points to a photo of Jose during the clip and says, "That's the man here that raped me. That's the pedophile." Jose Menendez was head of RCA Records during the time the alleged assault took place. The docuseries is based on the reporting of journalists Robert Rand and Mary Weinklin and tells Rosello's story of alleged abuse by not only Jose, but by another manager of Menudo. Members of Menudo have previously voiced allegations that they were abused while part of the band, revealed in their HBO Max docuseries, Menudo Forever Young. This new information from Rosello has the potential to bring a new light to the Menendez brothers, who were cast off as money-hungry, cold-blooded killers during their trial as a response to Lyle and Eric's lavish spending spree following their parents' murders. This is the testimony that Eric and Lyle needed when they were sentenced to life, says one person in the Menendez plus Menudo trailer. The series is directed by Hector Reyes and is executive produced by Stephen Michael, Jody Flynn, Mary Weinklin, Robert Rand, Esther Reyes, James McNabb, Sandra Young, and Ariel Burkle. Menendez plus Menudo, Boys Betrayed will air on Peacock beginning May 2nd. Next article.
All right. Peacock has done a special, A&E. Let's go over what was said. Today's show aired allegations on Tuesday during an exclusive first look of the upcoming 3-part Peacock docuseries. This was last year. Menendez plus Menudo, Boys Betrayed. Okay? This is some real deep stuff here. Peacock puts the infamous case of the Menendez brothers back in the spotlight and includes explosive new allegations against their late father. Are the allegations true by this young man and any other bandmate or young person at that time against Jose and also their manager? They're claiming allegations against the manager, and I want to bring you those allegations as well. This is what it was stated on the Today Show, that when he was 14 years of age, Jose Menendez, the late father of the two young men who are now older men, Lyle and Eric, this Menudo man says that he was sexually assaulted during a trip to the Menendez family's New Jersey home. So he went to the home of the Menendez. So where did it take place? Open room, closed room, couch, sofa, den, where? Just curious. Where was everybody in the house when this alleged rape took place? That's the man here that sexually assaulted me. We'll say that. That's the pedophile. This is some very interesting information. The docuseries is based on the reporting of journalists Robert Rand and Mary Weinklin. It tells Rosello's story of alleged abuse by not only Jose, okay, but by another manager of Menudo. Members of Menudo have previously voiced, members, it's plural, allegations that they were abused while part of the band, revealed in the HBO Max docuseries Menudo Forever Young. So we now have Peacock, Max, HBO Max, bringing forward allegations of improprieties, done by grown men against these boy children at the time. Do you believe the allegations? Because this is mind-blowing. We now have Jose, who's dead, and then this other manager. So what's this, a ring, a child ring of pedophiles abusing boy children? Are these gay men, bisexual men? What are we speaking of? Because one is no longer here to defend himself. This is very scary. Rosello says about these people. He's this is the testimony that Eric and Lyle needed when they were sentenced to life, says one person in the Menendez Menudo trailer. Okay. I was trying to see. So basically, they're just saying that the Menendez brothers were cast off as money-hungry brothers, you know, that exacted this crime against their parents. That's the take by some. This is very scary. Because just imagine if it's true. And it's not just the one Menudo brother stating it. I keep saying Menudo brother, band member. Also others So how many in the band are going to say they were sexually assaulted by Mr. Menendez? This is not good. Let's show you a picture of the manager who they're also alleging abuse from. Los Angeles Times is the source of this information, everybody. This was uploaded a year ago for those of you who are curious. That was the man who was managing the group at the time. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. God bless all of you. Happy Sunday. Thank you for tuning in to live number 2. All right. Whew. Source number 3, everybody. This is uploaded May 2nd, 2023. Eduardo Diaz, the founder of the internationally famous Puerto Rican boy band Menudo, is under investigation by Los Angeles Police Department over allegations that he sexually assaulted a former teenage member of the group in the 1980s, police officials said. Allegations of sexual, verbal, and physical abuse, so sexual, verbal, and physical, have swirled around Menudo for decades. See, I've never heard of this. If I have, I don't recollect. So allegations of sexual, verbal, and physical, that's a lot, pertaining to this group. But the investigation by LAPD centered around an attack that allegedly occurred at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. It's the first known criminal investigation surrounding Menudo and its creator by law enforcement. So this is what makes no sense. If for decades somebody was talking about what these young guys were going through, why didn't somebody go to the police? Number one, why didn't the boys go to the police? Number two, if an outsider was hearing allegations of abuse, sexual, verbal, whatever, why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you go to the manager to say, hey, what's this I'm hearing about the kids? Did the parents ever confront the managers? And also Jose. Did the boys ever confront the managers, Jose? Did somebody call the damn police? This is bizarre to me. This is just like Weinstein, Epstein, R. Kelly, now P. Diddy. Everybody's got something to say about what somebody was doing. The parties, the functions, the behavior, the, boy on boy action and touchy-feely this and that, and the way this person carried themselves. But yet it's years later, people are bringing forward allegations. This is why some people think, well, they're lying, they're making it up, blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to say that any of these young men are lying. What I'm saying is, if there were rumors, rhetoric, talk, gossip, why was law officials not notified? That's what I'm baffled by. So who all knew the truth that this man or these men were messing with these boys and other boy children at the time? Because God knows there's never one. Rarely is there one. Okay. We can confirm a report was taken and it is an ongoing investigation. LAPD spokesperson said in a statement to the Times, due to victim confidentiality, the department is unable to provide further. The investigation stems from allegations made by former Menudo star Roy Rosello, who was part of the teen pop band during the height of his international popularity in the 1980s. Rosello has spoken out years earlier about alleged abuse during his time with Menudo, but his account regained new focus as part of the Peacock docuseries Menendez plus Menudo, Boys Betrayed, which looks into the allegations of abuse within the band and the alleged connection to Jose Menendez, the former RCA Music executive who was murdered in 1989 by his sons Lau and Eric Menendez, who also fatally shot their mother, Mary Louise Kitty Menendez, in the family's Beverly Hills mansion. In the last episode of the 3-part docuseries, Rosello recounts a visit to the Biltmore Hotel during a trip to LA, where Menudo was staying at the hotel, and Rosello says he and the other teenage members of the band rented a second room for girls who were the same age as they were. Now, they would have been young men at the time, so how could they rent a room? it would be up to their manager to rent the rooms. Stay woke now. Rosello alleges in the series that Diaz slapped another member of the band, then punched him repeatedly when he found out about the girls. So this is weird to me. Diaz allegedly took Rosello to another room, tied him to the bed, beat him with a wet towel, and assaulted him. He told me, "This better be the last." "I'm not going to share you with anyone," Rosello said in Spanish in the docuseries. Toward the end of the docuseries, Rosello is seen walking into an LAPD station on November 8th to file a police report about the alleged attack. He returns with what looks like a copy of the report. So if this happened when he was 14, we now have to ask ourselves, how old is he now? Los Angeles Times is the source, everybody. Thank you for joining me. This is bad. This is horrible. Let's see what else they have. In the docuseries reported by journalists Robert Rand and Neri Euclid, Rosello alleges he was repeatedly sexually abused and assaulted by Diaz when he joined Menudo at 13. Rosello also alleges for the first time that Diaz took him to the home of Jose Menendez in New Jersey, where he says he was drugged and raped by Menendez when he was 14. So pay attention. He claims he was assaulted by the manager Diaz at 13 when he joined the group, Menudo. He also says that Diaz took him to the home of Jose in New Jersey, and he says he was drugged and raped by Menendez at 14. So you're being assaulted by your manager at 13 when you join the group, and then you're assaulted by Mr. Menendez, who is not alive, can't defend himself, at 14. Was this a case of swapping children and boys for sexual escapades? Were these men homosexuals? Is this manager a homosexual? Because you got to ask yourself, at this time, they would have been younger men. Stay woke. Okay? This Diaz guy is older now. But back then, when Menudo, they were young boys, they would have been younger men. You know what I'm saying? Older than the boy children, but still younger men. So is this some type of underground group or gay men, homosexual men hiding, perpetrating that they're straight? Will we find out that Diaz and Menendez has something going on? This is baffling because they're saying this was going on for years, that he ain't just started talking about this, Rosello. Just that maybe some of us are just now hearing about it. So see, this is where this is baffling. Once again, that's the man here that raped me, Rosello says in the docuseries, pointing to a picture of the group accompanied by Menendez. That's the pedophile. Oh, this is bad. It's not clear whether Rosello's rape allegation against Jose Menendez could be a factor in the Menendez brothers' case being re-examined. Attorneys for the siblings have previously attempted to appeal their convictions. But I had already gave you information about this, convictions and everything. 2 hung juries, and they were found guilty when they were tried together. And it says, but after the prosecutors retried the brothers, evidence of the alleged abuse was limited and they were convicted, as I brought you earlier in the Wikipedia information. It was also unclear whether Rosello, who alleged abuse happened on a regular basis during his time with the band, would seek to report more alleged instances of abuse and assault in other jurisdictions. So that means Puerto Rico, over here, over there, New York, wherever. New Jersey. Too late for New York, I believe. That's the reason why we have all these new allegations that came forward at the last minute against P. Diddy and R. Kelly, because the statute of limitations, I believe, have run out with that Victims Act in New York. Roy may have filed criminal charges in LA so far, but he says he was sexually assaulted in cities across the U.S. and around the world, Rand told the Times. Very interesting. So how many cities and states and jurisdictions was he and other band members assaulted by Diaz or Menendez or whomever else? Were there other men who abused the boys? Now that we're going with Diaz, did they swap the boys out with other people, bringing other men to sexually assault the boys? What are we talking about here? Former colleagues at the Miami Herald, Rand and Euclid, said they began working together on the Menudo Menendez story in 2018 when they met at the home of an aunt of the Menendez brothers. Since then, the two have been looking to speak to former members of the Menudo to tell their story, including Rosello. Roy was on a mission to get heard, and having an investigation open after all these years has filled him with pride and, for the first time, hope. And it may not be too late to find justice he so badly seeks, Euclid told the Times. In the docuseries, Rosello provided, at times, graphic details of the alleged sexual abuse, but it wasn't the first time he had shared allegations of abuse as a member of Menudo. In 2014, Rosello appeared on the Brazilian reality show A Fazenda 7 and alleged he had been a victim of sexual abuse by Diaz. 6 years later, he appeared on a Mexican entertainment news program, Ventaneando, and repeated claims of sexual abuse by Diaz. Abuse allegations had plagued the boy band since the early 1990s. This is bad. This is really bad. Bolivar Arellano, a freelance photographer who worked with Menudo, alleged on a Puerto Rican talk show in 1991 that several members of the band had been given alcohol, drugs, and were sexually abused, according to the docuseries. Arellano had covered the band's first visit to New York in 1983 and founded Menuditas, a store selling Menudo merchandise. Later that year, former Menudo member Ralphie Rodriguez appeared on the Univision program El Show de Cristina and said that he had seen the alleged abuse perpetrated by Diaz with underage members of the band. Diaz, who appeared in the show, denied the allegations. So we have a Ralphie Rodriguez, a former member, who went on a talk show to talk about the allegations of Diaz with other members. Okay. But Diaz must have been on the show as well, and he denied the allegations. So now we have more than one member stating allegations. Now we also have a photographer stating he witnessed abuse with drugs, alcohol, and sex with the boys. This is not good. So, sir, why didn't you go to authorities and say something? See, this is not good. Because when you're talking about grown people being eyewitnesses, I have a problem with that. Diaz did not participate in the Peacock docuseries. Why not? Why didn't you want to be interviewed, sir? And he also did not want to be contacted. He could not be contacted immediately for this story. Ricardo Menendez, a former attorney for Diaz, did not respond to requests for comment. Diaz was the creator of Menudo, which started in 1977, grew to worldwide stardom. Dressed in colorful, tight outfits, the teenagers quickly became heartthrobs at sold-out concerts around the world. The group remained active until 2002, so they were together a long time. But the height of its popularity was in the 1980s. Diaz also rotated members of the group throughout the decades, introducing new members as young as 13 and often phasing them out when they reached 16, of course. More than 30 teams took part in some form of Menudo, including superstar Ricky Martin. And most of you know who Ricky Martin is. And I do believe Ricky Martin is gay. So, not to be rude or disrespectful, but who's to say that this wasn't an elaborate plan of baiting kids to use them for their own sexual purposes? Because what you have to always remember is that a pedophile will put himself, herself in the position of being around children. Always remember that. They will go where children frequent. They will go where children hang out. They will put themselves in a position to be around children. So that is a teacher, a coach, a pastor, aide, or someone that works in a community center. Any environment dealing with kids is where you will find your pedophile. Even if that means just hanging at the local playground, local parks, they want to be in the view of children. They want to be around children. They have to be where children are. This does not shock me that a man as a manager would be sexually assaulting boy children, because he has to be in the fold where children are. So a manager of a boy group is no different than a coach, a teacher, a mentor, a big brother. You understand what I'm saying? Big brother, you know, I have that big brother group, big sister group, organization, Boy Scout leader, pastor, rabbi. It's all the same. You put yourself in that position because that's where you need to perfect your craft of abuse. So that does not shock me. So you have these men, 9 times out of 10, they have perpetrated themselves to be heterosexual. You see what Menendez, if we'd have believed that he was a homosexual, he had a whole wife, Kitty. And I won't doubt he was busy doing other things with women and men. Because as we heard in one of the documentary movies made about him, he was having an affair on Kitty. Okay? Kitty didn't feel attractive. That might be why I do believe the allegation that Lyle said she was always disrobing herself and asking was she pretty and how her body looked. Well, in one of the movies, she knew that her husband was sleeping around on her, and in that movie she was portrayed as a woman who did not like herself, had identity issues, was insecure with her looks. So that plays into the allegations by Lyle, if we're to believe these allegations, that Kitty was not happy with her looks. Perhaps she was, maybe a little bit bigger than she was than when she first, met her husband, had kids, so on and so forth. She didn't like her looks. She wasn't happy with her looks. She became an alcoholic, drug addict, if you believe those allegations. So now she's looking at a younger version of her husband, which are her children. Perhaps she was attracted to her children or wanted some form of affection in a sick manner. And she's going around prancing half scantily nude, half dressed in front of her boys to get a reaction out of them. Well, my husband won't look at me. Maybe my boy children will. You see where I'm going? Because if you have a sick mind, these are the things you will do. Naturally, this content is for somebody that is not attracted to children, but this is appealing to somebody who is. And a woman who's insecure with herself, who's seeking validation, approval of her body, her looks, she would go to those lengths to do these things inappropriate with her children. So did Kitty have any sexual relations with her boy children? Did Jose Menendez have sexual improprieties with his children or any other children and any boys of the Menudo band? Because now we're talking about 2 men who worked in the music industry, who knew each other and worked together. And were they both working for RCA or the same label at the same time with these allegations against these Menudo members? That is my question. Will we hear allegations from any other young men or girls pertaining to Mr. Menendez and Mr. Diaz and any other person working for any entity involved with Menudo of sexual assault or any abuse toward the boy children? The reporter for this information is Salvador Hernandez. Thank you so much, sir, for your information. Los Angeles Times is the source. Let's get down to business. We're now going to hear audio from the recent allegations in this case pertaining to the brothers and this new allegation from Mr. Rosello against the late Jose Menendez. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to Crime Vault. Oh, Lord have mercy. What a fine mess.
diminish the abuse, and he called it the abuse excuse.
Brothers Eric and Lyle Menendez hoping to be released from prison or get a new trial for the murders of their parents after bombshell claims that new evidence proves their father sexually abused them. But the prosecutor on the case isn't buying it.
This is not a manslaughter trial. Eric and Lyle were not victims.
Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. In the mid-90s, aside from the O.J. Simpson case, there was probably no bigger case than the trial of Eric and Lyle Menendez. The brothers killed their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, at their home in Beverly Hills in 1989 and claimed burglars did it. Eric and Lyle went on spending sprees after their parents' murders. They were charged in 1992. The first trial ended in a hung jury, the second in a conviction and life sentences. Nearly a year ago, attorneys for Eric and Lyle filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus, saying new evidence shows they should be freed or get a new trial. They always argued that they were guilty of manslaughter and not murder. The evidence that the brothers cite includes a claim from Roy Rosello, a member of the popular 1980s boy band Menudo, coming forward to say that Jose Menendez raped him as a child. Menudo was represented by RCA Records at the time, where Jose was an executive. The prosecutor on the murder case, though, says she doesn't believe it to this day. She spoke with Fox Nation in a new 4-part series, Menendez Brothers, Victims or Villains, that was just released.
I put on the fact that these two yahoos killed their parents. And I put on the fact that they killed them in cold blood with premeditation. And the facts in this case are irrefutable, except for the ones about Jose being a child molester, which I still, to this day, after 34 years of thinking about it, I don't buy it.
Wow. So you don't believe it about the other person either?
All safe and sound.
So do you not believe it about the Menudo member, ma'am? Because now we got more people coming out saying he touched him inappropriately. And Mr. Diaz. Mr. Rosello says Menendez touched him, and also Diaz touched the other boys.
Not at all. Let me say this. I did a preliminary hearing with Leslie Abramson 5 years before this case, and in it she was saying that her client was in fact a victim of domestic abuse. But as soon as she came on the case, I know, oh, okay, she's going to turn them into victims, because that was her MO.
There you go.
Wow.
The Menendezes are adamant that they were the victims of abuse and cite a letter they say Eric wrote to their cousin Andy in 1988 detailing the abuse. Attorney Mark Garrigus is part of Eric and Lyle's defense team. I spoke with him last year about this case.
But we're hoping to at least get a hearing or an order that will give us a hearing. And as somebody much more clever than me said, think about this. If this case from the 90s was tried today, do you think for a minute that somebody would exclude the abuse? It wouldn't happen. Victims, for the most part, all of the relatives are supported.
So what chance do the Menendez brothers have of actually being released from prison or being resentenced? Joining me to discuss this are two California lawyers. Josh Ritter is a former prosecutor and Laura Uratzian is a defense attorney. Thanks to both of you for coming on. Josh, I'll start with you on this because full disclosure, as you told me, you were interviewed for this new Fox Nation 4-part series about the Menendez case. So tell me, what do you believe will happen with this? What are your thoughts on the petition?
Well, I think they have strong arguments. This is not something that I would say is without merit. They make strong points as far as, and it's important, I think, to understand the distinction here is that they're not saying these two men are innocent. They're saying they're guilty, but they're guilty of manslaughter, and that they weren't given the proper opportunity to present evidence toward that. And they said that in the first trial, they hung significantly on that issue between murder and manslaughter. And on the second trial, the judge made significant rulings limiting their ability to present evidence about the abuse, which would have lended towards their manslaughter arguments. And that because of that, the prosecution was given the opportunity to make statements in closing arguments along the lines of there is no corroborating evidence. And their position is that is in fact not true for the prosecutor to have even made those arguments to the jury. So I think there's merit to it. I think the arguments are strong. The problem is where they're bringing this, courts are incredibly reluctant to turn over jury verdicts. And they're incredibly reluctant to go back and revisit things unless they feel that the judge made rulings that are simply not founded and are simply outside of the judge's discretion, in other words. So that's the uphill battle that they have.
That's interesting you bring that up, because this is a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. And that, just so our viewers are clear on that, what that means is you go to a judge, you're basically saying to the prison warden, bring us the body. That's what it means. And you're saying this person is being held unlawfully. And this was filed in state court and not federal court. So, Laura, do you have any opinion on why that happened? Because a lot of times we see these filed in federal court.
In this case, I'm assuming we've got Cliff Gardner, who's a very experienced appellate lawyer. He usually, the writ of habeas corpus that I know of, he brings them in state court. At least I've seen that in the Scott Peterson case. He must have thought that is the place to do it, and I would defer him on that. He's the expert and the professional on that. In this case, in addition to what Josh was saying, as far as what arguments the district attorney made, they're also alleging that there's new evidence in this case that they've discovered since the convictions, including some of them are very damning as far as the parents are concerned, including a letter that Eric had sent to his cousin Andy, where he in fact writes about the abuse and how he can't tolerate it anymore, and it almost confirms that it's not so. And that was a letter that was sent 8 months prior to the shooting. And also a new discovery has come up, no information has come up about Jose Menendez, the father of the two brothers, having raped and a singer who was part of a band. So when he was 13 or 14, again, pretty damning. It goes to support the defense argument and defense theory that these boys were molested and sexually battered and raped by their father, and the mom obviously did nothing about it, and they were being abused physically and emotionally by both parents.
And that was a member of the band Menudo. When we were all kids, I think Menudo was a really big deal. And Jose Menendez was a higher up at RCA Records and would have had access, the brothers argue, to members of Menudo, and that's how this happened. I think you bring up a good point about this letter, Laura. I mean, there's this letter that Eric is purported to have written to his cousin Andy in 1988, before the murders, talking about this abuse. And apparently this letter wasn't discovered until after the cousin died. So it wasn't even available at trial. So I think that's an interesting point you bring up. Maybe they file this in state court because it's kind of newly discovered evidence, but they do it in the form of a habeas petition. Josh, what do you make of this letter as a former prosecutor? There are some people who always say, you talk about newly discovered evidence, and it's supposed to be evidence that couldn't have been discovered at the time or wasn't available at the time. I don't know. Is this newly discovered evidence from the prosecution's perspective? Because we know they claimed this at the first trial, that there was, mental, physical, sexual abuse, but the letter appears to be brand new.
Yeah, I don't think there's any denying that it would be considered newly discovered. They had looked for as much evidence that they could to support their arguments that they were the victims of abuse at their father's hands. And it was only revealed until much later. The problem is the question before the court now is going to be, well, yes, this is newly discovered evidence, but would it have significantly impacted the juror's decision? Would it have moved the needle, in other words? And I think the prosecution, and by the way, I don't know how firmly they are arguing against all of this, but the prosecution's position essentially is going to be that there was evidence of this at the time. They had made these arguments. The judge made the rulings that they did. And this isn't such significant evidence that you can say that they weren't involved in the killings. It's just more evidence towards the idea of manslaughter. And we don't know if this would have really changed the jurors' minds. It's all of these questions that make it ambiguous as to what the results would have been and if they would have been any different. And again, the courts like finality. They want jurors' verdicts to remain and not to be continually questioned years and years later. So it is strong evidence. I think they had it at the time, it may have made a difference, but that's a different question that's being presented to the court now.
The stories we cover make it really clear that you can get into a jam and.
All right, brief infomercial. Please take the polls on my community page. They are about this Menudo business and allegations about Kitty and Jose Menendez abusing their boy children, sexually abusing their children. Those are the polls I have posted. Thank you so much. Welcome to Crime Vaults, where I discuss older crimes that have been resolved in the judicial court process or not resolved. Thank you so much for joining me. There will be more Crime Vault videos this week. The next Crime Vault video will be about John Wayne Gacy. Thank you. Upcoming also, O.J. Simpson. Continue conversations about O.J. Simpson. A few days ago, he passed away at 76 years of age of prostate cancer. We will continue to discuss O.J. Simpson. He will be cremated on Tuesday. Celebration of Life will be in, I believe, Las Vegas, pertaining to O.J. Simpson. And I'm going to bring you a little information pertaining to that. And also, he had people sign documents not to discuss the visitations when he was sick.
Obviously, the first trial, the jury was conflicted. They couldn't reach a unanimous verdict. Different rulings in the second trial leads to murder convictions, and they get life in prison without parole. These brothers are cast as like spoiled brats who killed their parents, and they wanted the money, and they went on a spending spree, and they were just jerks, and they claimed that the house was burglarized, and they were made fun of on late night TV and on Saturday Night Live, things like that. Had this letter existed from your perspective as a defense attorney, obviously it existed, but had the defense had it back then, and maybe cousin Andy who would have been alive or whatever had testified, let's just kind of put ourselves back in that position back then. Do you think that would have tipped the scales? It's hard. I'm asking you to speculate a little bit, but it sounds pretty compelling if you've got a letter where you're saying, like, I can't take this anymore. Dad is like doing this.
Exactly.
And he's molesting me, and I can't take it.
Think about it. You've got a witness who's testifying. You've got a jury at the first trial that's 6-6, right, for manslaughter versus murder. And the 6 were for manslaughter, and I think it was a mix as far as where they were on the rest of the, as far as the rest of the 6 jurors. You've got a witness who's testifying about what Eric told him when they were young, when they were 13. And you get a letter that.
And that's the difference. How you can determine the truth to this case of the murders. If the letter was written when they were children, such as 13, they didn't kill the parents until they were older. So one would say, well, it can't be that he plotted it 6, 7, 8 years beforehand. He was just a kid. So this is how you can determine if this is truth, that they were being touched inappropriately. Because we're now talking about 2 different cousins and told a version by each brother. Lau goes to one cousin, Eric goes to another one. The cousin has the letter. They didn't find it 2 years later. I guess they're saying that cousin's gone, or person told is no longer alive. Do the math. 13 to late teen. It's strange. Maybe there is some truth to the allegations.
Backs it up. 8 months before the shooting, and this is, they're much older, and he's still complaining about abuse.
So let's hear that one more time.
The 6 were for manslaughter, and I think it was a mix as far as where they were on the rest of the, as far as the rest of the 6 jurors. You've got a witness who's testifying about what Eric told him when they were young, when they were 13. And you get a letter that backs it up. 8 months before the shooting, and this is, they're much older, and he's still complaining about abuse, sexual abuse. That not only corroborates.
So 8 months, now older, Eric is complaining to a relative, a boy relative, about being sexually touched by the parent, Jose. That's a long time as well. Who would wait 8 months? And it's not to say that a person can't plot out a murder 8 months ahead of time, but I think that's a long time. Crossing a person's mind, maybe one could say, well, he may have thought about it periodically through his life if he's actually was being touched by the father or had anger towards the father, he allowed. But you're still talking about a young person to being near grown and then shooting the parents. Is there some truth to the allegations? Is it true that each brother told a relative that they were touched by their father, Jose Menendez? You decide.
It also tells you where he is mentally, right? This individual, Eric, in this case.
Let's repeat it one more time so you all can get the information. Thank you.
The jury at the first trial, that's 6-6, right, for manslaughter versus murder. And the 6 were for manslaughter, and I think it was a mix as far as where they were on the rest of the, as far as the rest of the 6 jurors. You've got a witness who's testifying about what Eric told him when they were young, when they were 13. And you get a letter that backs it up 8 months before the shooting. And this is, they're much older, and he's still complaining about abuse. Sexual abuse. That not only corroborates it, it also tells you where he is mentally, right? This individual, Eric, in this case, is still being abused years later. He's still telling his cousin. So this is the second time. It's not just one time, it's a second time. Unfortunately, the cousin didn't remember it. I think it would have been very impactful, especially for a jury that was where you had 6 convinced that this was voluntary manslaughter. You never know. Maybe it would have been, you would have had all 12 on the side. It's hard to tell, but it is very compelling, and it's something that should have been presented to the jury. Now, we know that at the second trial, a lot of things were excluded, and it was a lot more limited. Again, the jury obviously wasn't as convinced on the abuse because they didn't hear as much evidence on the abuse. So imagine them seeing a letter that was handwritten 8 months prior. What the prosecution was going to argue that they planned this 8 months prior. So Eric said.
So 8 months prior. Sorry.
Hard to believe. So the jury would have been convinced. I think they would have at least bought it. Maybe they would have had a few more people on their side. You never know. They could have had, again, a hung jury for.
So once again, as I just stated, was the letter written to plot the deaths of the parents? Was it intentional just to be the father, or both? Or just Eric wrote the letter, and then later the boys got tired, conspired? What was the motive? Sexual assault or greed or both? That's the poll I'm posting to my community page right now. Please go over to my community page to take the poll. Take the polls, because I have a few up. Why did the boys murder their parents? Greed, sexual assault, one, the other, both? Not sure? Take the polls. A letter was written 8 months before the murders of Jose and Kitty Menendez. Did they plan these murders 8 months ahead of time by writing the letter, or thought about it 8 months before? Talked about it 8 months before? Do you believe the relatives, the cousins, told the truth that they knew of the allegations and was told verbatim by each brother that they were assaulted? Because now we have 2 accounts by 2 different relatives that Jose touched the boys, a girl cousin and a boy cousin.
The second trial. So it's something that the court should consider, and I think it's strong enough for them to hopefully overturn the convictions.
This is a high-profile case. I mean, back in the 90s, aside from OJ, nothing bigger than the Menendez brothers case, right? So it's a big case. A lot of time has passed, though, and we have the DA's office led by George Gascon now. It's a different playing field. So, Josh, just briefly, where do you see this going?
No, that's a really important point that you bring up. This was decades ago, and culturally, as a society, we view this differently. We have had a much fuller understanding about the cycle of abuse and how people behave when they're being abused, especially We're talking about a father abusing male children and our thoughts on that. There was a lot of discussion at the time of why did they just fight him off? And like you had pointed out earlier, they were subject to a lot of ridicule in the media at that time. I think things have changed significantly, and our view towards abuse and their behavior has changed significantly. I think as a society, we're ready to take another look at this case. The problem is they're dealing with the constraints of the legal system and what they can allow with the arguments that they're making.
Laura, what's your take on that?
Josh may be right on that one, because the legal standards are different than what the society thinks. Yes, we have now as a society, we're more ready to give them a chance, but you've got the courts deciding this issue. And I mean, I've read the writ of habeas corpus. It raises some very good points. Would it be a good idea for them to get a second trial, a third trial actually? Yes, but are the courts going to agree with us? Can't tell you. It's, you never know. You never know. I've seen all sorts of stuff. We've seen it in the Scott Peterson case. Anything is possible. So I'm not going to rule it out.
All right, well, we can just wait and see. I know we've reached out to the LADA's office several times about this, and they're really not commenting. So Mark Garrigus, I know, was on TV saying that some of the family members of Kitty and Jose are supportive of the brothers' release, of Eric and Lyle being released, and that they've presented that.
So they're saying here that some family members, people do believe that the brothers should be released. Are they only saying that because of this new allegation by the Menudo band member and other members, or on its own merit of what they know of the brothers and the relationship with Kitty and the father, Jose? Very curious. Let me repeat that one more time.
You never know. You never know. I've seen all sorts of stuff. We've seen it in the Scott Peterson case. Anything is possible. So I'm not going to rule it out.
All right, well, we can just wait and see. I know we've reached out to the LADA's office several times about this, and they're really not commenting. So Mark Garrigus, I know, was on TV saying that some of the family members of Kitty and Jose are supportive of the brothers' release, of Eric and Lyle being released, and that they've presented that to the DA's office. So it'll be interesting to see what their take is on this eventually. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Ange.
All right, everybody. Law and Crime Network is the source. I brought you several sources of information. Please check out the beginning of this live stream to get those sources. LA Times was one of the sources. Wikipedia. Posting all these polls for you all to take pertaining to the Menendez brothers and the Menudo allegation against Jose and their founding person, Mr. Diaz, who founded the group Menudo. Their allegations against him. That is what all this information is about that you've been listening to during this live. We're going to do a brief recap. Many documentaries, stories, movies have been done about the Menendez brothers, Peacock, Netflix, so on and so forth. What do you believe? What was the motive for the murder of Kitty and Jose? Greed or child molestation, sex assault only, or greed, both? Please take the polls on my community page. Mr. Rosello has made an allegation against Jose that he touched him inappropriately, and also against Mr. Diaz. He's basically saying he was raped at their home, the Menendez family home in New Jersey, and he's also bringing allegations of physical, sexual, mental abuse, physical abuse by Mr. Diaz, who was the manager of the boy group many moons ago. And naturally, there have been many members of that group because they would phase the guys out by the age of 16, which is very interesting. And I understand that for the reason of the youthful look. You don't want them starting to look like they're grown and getting facial hair. But are we talking about an underground group of men who were looking for boys to molest, make money off of them, and also use them, which could still be a form of human trafficking, I guess. You're out here picking up young men to be in a group, and then you're also sexually assaulting them, physically abusing them, and mentally abusing them. So we're waiting to see who's going to come forward to say they have validation of these accusations. Family members, who is going to tell the story. From the information that I brought you, allegedly, this was rumored years ago of allegations by Mr. Diaz and the Menudo boys, the band group. So this takes me back to, as I said, the stuff we've heard about Weinstein, Epstein, R. Kelly, P. Diddy, other famous people who have this black cloud over them of sexually, being inappropriate with people in general. And to me, that's a bad thing. That people are whispering and talking about this in their settings, in the entertainment field, but yet it's nothing anybody can do. That's when you know there's something wrong. When you start hearing, oh, they've been saying that. They've been talking about that. So we have that here with this Menudo group, that it's been the topic of conversation. It didn't just happen yesterday, last year, him going to this paper, these people. He's been on talk shows. I brought you that information during this live stream that he's been on. Mr. Rosello's been on talk shows talking about it. You have a photographer saying he witnessed the abuse with drugs, alcohol, sexual improprieties by Mr. Diaz and the boy group. Also, another member has come forward to state that he was sexually touched or whatever. So if I hear from an older person that's grown, I'm starting to get leery. I'm going to question that person, of course, like, oh, why you didn't call the police? Why didn't you say something? Why you didn't say something to him? Like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. Shouldn't be touching the boys. Because, see, that's some creepy shit right there. You're an adult seeing it and you don't say something. A child is one thing, but a whole full-grown adult. So then I got to ask you, sir, as the freelance photographer, how old were you and why didn't you say anything? Because that's creepy. And at what point did you decide to come out? Just here recently, a year ago? What? This is all BS. Any family members, friends, people that worked in the industry, did you notice anything sexual nature or any type of abuse by Mr. Diaz toward the boy group? Because if you all notice something, you're just as foul and vile as well. Did the boys ever tell the parents? Did the parents not say anything because they knew the kids needed the money and they basically just used their children? Hey, okay, sorry, but we need the money. Because you got to remember, these are foreign people we're talking about. And 9 times out of 10, these kids may not have came from great upbringings or came from wealth. So people will put their heads in the sand when it comes to money. And that's a sad thing to say, because we heard a lot of that with the R. Kelly situation. But I firmly believe in one case, the mother had no idea her daughter was running off with R. Kelly, because the girl even said, my mother didn't even know I was going to school, wasn't even going to school. So my thing is, if the mother didn't know where the child was and what she was doing, she would know that the little girl was hanging out with R. Kelly. Come on. You don't know where your child is. You don't know what they're doing. They could be anywhere. Hell, they could be 3 states over. You don't know, because if you don't care. And we see a lot of this with people raising children. Okay? People just don't care. They're not in tune to their kids. This is why in some states they charge you for your children missing school, not going to school, because they feel like, hell, you're supposed to know where your children are. You're supposed to know that your child went to school. You're supposed to be receiving letters and notifications about your child. You're supposed to be in tune to your children. You can't just send your kid to school and expect somebody to rear your damn kid, and then you play dumb at the end when somebody says, oh, we've got this information that your child's doing this, this, and this. And then you're acting like, oh, I don't know anything about it. Or, no, that's not my Johnny. That's not my Susie. They would never do that. Well, if you are in tune to your kids. That's just how I look at life. You're supposed to know everything about your kid to the best of your ability. Now, will children get into mischief and mayhem and get into these type of situations of being abused and you not have knowledge? Of course. But if you're paying attention to your child's attitude, disposition, their body, physical, stomach getting a little bigger, such as in females, these are things you're supposed to pay attention to. They're always in their room, door closed, don't want to talk, don't want to eat, don't want to interact. You should know there's something wrong. And also, you should be paying attention to the people that are around your child. And I think it's time now for people to start talking about sex with their children and inappropriate touching. Now, some people want to go all up in arms about, sex being taught in schools. That's another subject I want to bring to you later on. But Who do you want to talk to your child about? You don't want nobody in school talking to your children about sex, then maybe it's time for you to do it. And I don't think you really need to be waiting too late in life. Because right now, this is a problem. Predators. So while you're sitting up here scared to talk to your kids about sex and wanting them to know things too early on, you got people out here hoping that you won't talk to your kids about sex, and they'll be out here trying to show your kids how to do stuff and shh, don't tell your mommy, don't tell your daddy, or I'll hurt you, I'll hurt your family. And then your child never tells you. And then they wait years and years later to tell you, and then you act like you're shocked. Oh, I didn't know, and are you sure? Am I sure? Am I sure that a person was touching me inappropriately? Because what you have to tell yourself, who makes up this type of shit? I don't see children making up this. Are there some diabolical teenagers that would? Possibly so. You know, I think of a case of someone bringing forward allegations against one of my family members many moons ago. And this person, she's been a problem ever since that allegation. And that relative never touched me inappropriately. Do you understand? They had access to me and they never touched me inappropriately. So I never believed those allegations. And I look back on that versus how that person is still today, almost 60 years of age, and she's just a menace. Do you understand what I'm saying? Always in something. Always in some shit. Been on drugs for damn near what? Almost 40 years. Hasn't done anything significant with her life. You know, made no attempt to try to rear her children, do anything, keep a full job. You know, just now getting a place to sleep and keep a whole damn apartment. That says a lot about who you are as a person. So then you have to think back. What would be the truth of somebody sexually assaulting this young lady? Because she stayed in mischief for years. And when you're talking about like 40 years of mischief, I'm just saying personally, that says a lot to me about your character. That you never want to try to do right. So then you go back in hindsight. Would I actually believe an allegation is a man tried to touch this woman when she was a teenager? I don't believe it. Certain cases of abuse bring me some concrete evidence, because you do have a lot of wayward children, and they can make up allegations against a person if they, know what it means to be sexually touched. I tend not to say that a child would lie, because I just don't believe in smaller children making up things like this. It's just something I can't see a child making up. They either were touched or they were coerced by another adult to say it. But I'm just saying every situation is different. But as children get older, they can learn to manipulate and make up such horrendous allegations. Oh, yes. Because I believe with this person I'm speaking of, someone said she had heard of it off of a soap opera. Go figure. But I just threw that in there. Here are the polls pertaining to the Menendez brothers and the Menudo allegation. Thank you for joining me. Should Menendez brothers, I'm going to have to edit that because I spelled their name wrong. But anywho, should the Menendez brothers get a new trial? That's one of the questions on my community page. Please take the poll. No one's voted yet. Will Menendez be freed from new Menudo bandmates allegation against Jose? No one's took the poll yet on that one. Why did the Menendez brothers murder their parents? Sexual assault by father. Greed. Both. Not sure. No takers yet. Do you believe Menudo member number 2 and freelance photographer confirming assault allegations against Menudo founder Mr. Diaz? So far, no takers on that. Did Jose Menendez and band manager Diaz assault ex-Menudo member? No takers on that either. Did Kitty Menendez assault or exhibited inappropriate behavior with son or sons? So far, no one's answered. And did Jose Menendez assault his boys? No takers either. Thank you so much for joining me. There's a new update pertaining to Riley Strang. More nonsense with that case. I also brought you a live stream pertaining to the Kansas women missing So far, I have not heard that they have been found, but there have been 4 arrests in that case, and one of the biological grandmothers who had custody of the children, she was arrested. So now we have to ask, where are the children? Who has custody of them? Another family member, or are they in the state's custody? And I also brought you information pertaining to an African American female who was missing in Birmingham, Alabama. She has been found in a vehicle, and her boyfriend, Mr. Cedric Robertson, is now in custody for kidnap and murder. And then we go to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A man by the name of Maxwell Anderson has also been charged with murder in the death of Sade Robinson. One leg was found in a park. DNA matches it to Sade Robinson. Black female, Caucasian suspect. He is also in custody. So please check out my first live stream from earlier. It was a 3-part live of these said cases in Alabama, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 3 cases, 3 arrests, all parties in custody. And also, before I check out of here, with the case of the women missing in Kansas, will we find out that the father who is incarcerated, he's also involved in the plot to murder the children's mother? Because as I told the chat earlier, I believe there's more to this story with the male being in rehab. Will we find out that the rehab is in close proximity to the custody of the children and or this court date that Miss Butler was supposed to attend pertaining to the children? Because I smell something fishy here, and I won't doubt that possibly he's involved. Now, if he's not involved, that's fine. But that's just my opinion at the moment, that I need to know more about when he went into rehab, number one. Physical custody of the children by the grandmother. Was it granted by the judge, or he just naturally gave his children to his mother because he was in rehab? Number 3, if the judge gave custody to the grandmother, why? That should be on everyone's minds. If the judge gave the grandmother custody, because she has now been arrested and she's in custody, why would the judge give her custody, number 1? Okay? Why Miss Butler never had custody of her children? See, I ask all the pertinent questions because everybody's just talking about the women missing. Oh, we think the grandmother did it because they were fighting for custody. She was going to court. Okay, cool. But what you're not asking is why this woman didn't have custody of her damn children, because I'm curious to that. So you have to stack the pins up because they're stacked high at this point. Why would this woman living in a whole nother state not have custody of her own children? At what point did she not get custody? What happened for her to lose custody and not have custody? See, nobody's asking those questions. And as I said, nobody has a right to murder this woman, okay? Because everybody's got their idea of what murder is and why a person should be alive, unalive, okay? Naturally, I'm not going to root for anybody being murdered. But I'm also going to ask, is there more to this story that has not been revealed about Miss Butler? Because what I find bizarre with this story is everybody being quiet in Kansas and not wanting to talk. Police told them not to talk, but you got to use discretion. There are going to be lots of people that knew her and also knew the other lady, the state worker. Nobody wanted to say anything about the women missing. That's bizarre to me. Now, one woman has come forward to speak on one of the victims, but as I'm saying, it's still strange. Matter of fact, I think 2 women came. One woman showed herself and another woman, they didn't show her. It's still strange because these 2 women, I would assume, wouldn't know each other, wouldn't be hanging with each other. So why wouldn't somebody want to come forward to speak on behalf of the state worker or Miss Butler, the mother? So pay attention to the details now. 2 women allegedly not friends, only dealing with each other in a business capacity. One is a state worker to go on this visit of picking up children. The other one is the mother of the children. They go missing en route to this pickup location. Pickup location in a barren place. Can't believe a judge would even sign off on this place. Can't believe the state would sign off on this place. Either state. So see, this is a two-party situation. She's coming from one state. You had to have known about the location to agree with it. Would you not? Number two, the state issuing the state that the children custody that they're in. This is weird to me. They're in this Oklahoma state. Why would the state supervisor, whomever, agree to this location? Did the judge know of the location? See, I want to put everybody in the loop. I want to put everybody on radar because somebody has to take accountability for what happened to these two women, besides the people who unalived them. We can put them on the back burner for now. Who signed off on the location, which was a barren gas station? Make it make sense. Why would anybody agree to that location? Oh, somebody that wants to unalive you, hell yeah, they could agree to it down the road. They say, oh, well, now she wants custody because my son's in rehab, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, great place. So let's ask this question. Number one, who signed off on the location? Number two, why would the mother agree to it knowing it was an abandoned place? Number three, how long has that place been the pickup drop-off location? So you have to ask all the questions. And that's something I'm seeing with a lot of people who talk about true crime. They don't ask things that are obvious. And you need to start at the beginning. And the beginning is the couple. How long they were together. Why they're not together. Why does the mother not have legal custody of her children? Does she have any vices, such as drug, alcohol use in the past, present? Why is this man in drug rehab? Obvious, he has a drug problem or alcohol problem. How long has he been in there? Allegations against his mother that she's cruel, threatening, blah, blah, blah. What's the time of him repeating this if these allegations are true? Any recent police reports between the two before he went into rehab? See, stay woke. Any new arrests by him and the mother? Any past reports against the grandmother? Violence between the grandmother, the son, the grandmother and her boyfriend, husband, whomever. Does the grandmother have a prior record? Does Miss Butler have a prior record for violence, drugs, alcohol, any crimes? See, there's something missing here with this case. As I said, there's more to it than just the women went missing. It's more to it than a custody issue. Oh, it's always more than that. Because trust me, every little thing builds up to a jump off. And that's what a lot of people don't seem to understand about true crime. You're only getting the gist of what people want to put out. But what you need to be paying attention to is the obvious. There's a reason why the people in Kansas weren't talking. There's a reason why people in Oklahoma weren't talking. There's a reason why Miss Butler didn't have custody of her children. And you may find out that the son plotted this crime with his mother, and then the mother got these other people to join. And then you got to ask that question as well, which is the sickest part of the story. How do you talk 3 other people to conspire to kill a woman and a state worker? These are not your children. I don't know who these other 2 random people are in relation to Miss Adams. So who are the other 2 people, the guy and girl, the man and woman? The boyfriend, why would you sign off on this bullshit? Whose idea was it to unalive Miss Butler and the state worker? Does she normally go with the state worker? So you got to ask all the questions. I'm sure in time, this week we will get more information to all these questions that I have asked. Somebody's going to finally tell the truth of why Miss Butler didn't have custody, how long she was with the boyfriend, dated him, married, whatever. Any allegations against her, any prior criminal records against her, and also the father, also the grandmother, also the boyfriend, also the other two cohorts who signed off on this location, because this makes no logical sense to me. A barren place that wasn't even an operable gas station. Who signed off, and why would Miss Butler agree to an abandoned station? Would you not Google the place to make sure it was working, viable? I would. You have to stay in the know when you are dealing with a situation of dealing with children and custody issues. And that's a barren place. And when you look at the drone footage of the highway, there's nothing going or coming either direction. The place where the car was found, it's off in the grass. So now you got to ask yourself, when did they approach the vehicle of the women? In which state? Kansas or Oklahoma? This is how you know there's more people involved. Because somebody had to intercept the vehicle in either state, either direction. Somebody had to take the two women away. Stay woke, because they're not with the car. Then that leaves the car. Why did it take 4 people to be involved? Who was actually involved in the interception of the car? Okay? With or without weapons at the time. Well, if blood was found inside of the car, outside of the car, then one would say weapons were used at the location. Or was the car somewhere intercepted, then put somewhere else, stay woke, without the victims? Oh. So now that we know that the place was barren, did it happen there? Okay? And then the car was moved elsewhere. Because where I saw the car parked on the side of the road, I didn't remember seeing the gas station. So now you got to ask that. Meetup place is how far from where the car was parked, because they were showing the roads and the roads intersecting one another. And I didn't remember seeing the gas station in proximity to where the car was found. So what is the proximity of the barren gas station, the meetup place, to where the car was parked? Those are the questions I have. Thank you for joining me. God bless you. Have a wonderful week. Please check my community board for all updates and posts. Please take them. I appreciate it. I will bring you an update to all these stories. The next live stream will be pertaining to O.J. Simpson. I've got some more content pertaining to P. Diddy and some other news that I've posted. I will be bringing more updates this week. I'm trying to think what else. Want to leave anything out? And also my movie suggestions for this weekend. I have 3 suggestions up there. Some wonderful suggestions. Let me look at my little Rolodex right quick. So you all, in case you haven't checked any of them out, you can watch them tonight. First suggestion is Our House, a very good movie filmed in the UK. These are all British mysteries. Undeniable and Bloodlines. Bloodlines is about a man, an oncologist, who is slowly poisoning his wife. Undeniable is about a woman who recognizes a doctor and he looks familiar to her. And he reminds her of a man who murdered her mother when she was a young girl. Is he the right guy who killed her mother when she was a young girl? She and her mother were out on an outing and the mother was brutally murdered. Fast forward many years later, the woman is at the hospital and she sees this man who looks familiar and resembles the man who murdered her mother. That's Undeniable. Our House is about a woman who comes home and finds it vacant and new people moving into the house, and they say they now have ownership of the house. Very good thriller. Our House, Undeniable, and Bloodlines, all playing free on Tubi. Thank you so much. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign Beganzi129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your continued support of this network. Please check out, once again, all updates posted to the community page, my community page. Take the polls. And also, I will bring you more updates to the stories that I covered today. Anything else with the Menendez brothers and the Menudo case, I will bring you information in those storylines. And as I said, upcoming will be P. Diddy, O.J. Simpson, and a slew of other topics. Also, Crime Vault this week, we will be discussing John Wayne Gacy and the remaining unidentified bodies. Who are they? And will there be some type of result in those cases? And please check out the John Wayne Gacy documentary that is currently on Tubi. It was filmed a little while ago. Please check it out. I think you would thoroughly enjoy it. This is where they locate family members who believe their loved one was taken by Mr. Gacy, and you get a result of those cases. Thank you so much. You have been listening to the Vault XL.